The roar of the crowd was deafening. Their voices mixed with the sound of mechanical drones zooming overhead, capturing every moment. From the arena's edge, the alien spectators watched eagerly, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. This wasn't just a show. It was an execution. But as the gates opened, their expectations began to shift. The woman standing in the center of the arena was covered in dirt and grime, her clothes torn from the brutal conditions. Her hands, clenched tightly around a simple weapon, a pulse pistol, betrayed the calmness of her face. Her name was Elara Quinn, and she was humanity's last hope in a galaxy of predators. They had underestimated her. They thought she was just another slave, another weakling, another toy for their amusement. But they were about to learn otherwise. Elara didn't move at first. She stood tall, despite the chains that bound her wrists. The collar around her neck hummed faintly with energy, a reminder of the power the star had over her. It was meant to suppress her, to keep her weak, to keep her from fighting back. But there was a fire inside her that no collar could extinguish. Above, the broadcast drones circled like vultures, capturing every second of the spectacle for the star, whose cruel eyes were trained on her. The betting had begun the moment she was thrown into the arena, a human girl, barely 18, thrown into a pit of Deathworld beasts and automated soldiers. She was supposed to die within minutes. And that's what the crowd expected. Instead, Elara smiled. With a swift motion, she drew the pulse pistol from its holster, the weapon humming to life in her hand. The first of the star drones, a sleek, insected creature with whirring mechanical wings, shot at her from above. It was fast. It was precise. But Elara wasn't slow. She fired once, twice. The drone exploded midair, its wreckage falling to the dirt in a cloud of smoke and sparks. The crowd fell silent. The Z'Tar were no strangers to brutality. They ruled through fear and strength, using their technology to crush every species they encountered. But they hadn't yet faced a Deathworlder. The next challenge was a massive, armored beast, a creature the size of a small building. Its razor-sharp claws gleamed in the arena's harsh lights as it lumbered toward her. The crowd cheered, bloodlust in their eyes, ready to see Elara crushed under the weight of the monster. But Elara didn't back away. She stood her ground, eyes locked on the creature. Her mind raced, calculating every angle, every possible movement. The beast roared and lunged, its massive jaws snapping open with deadly force. Elara dodged. She didn't just avoid it. She dove beneath the beast, rolling forward and coming up on its side. In a single fluid motion, she fired the pulse pistol at the weak spot in its underbelly, the energy blast cutting through its armor and into its heart. The creature screamed in agony before collapsing, its massive body crashing to the ground in a violent thud. The silence in the arena was deafening. For a moment, no one moved. Then the realization hit. This wasn't just another fight. This wasn't another human that would fall to the might of the star. This was something different. Elara stood over the fallen creature, her breathing steady, her gaze unflinching as she surveyed the broken body of the beast. The weapon in her hand crackled with power, and she held it at the ready. She wasn't here to play by their rules. She was here to break them. The crowd, once silent, erupted into a mix of shock and awe. They had expected her to die, quickly, painfully, like the others. But this human girl was something else. Something they didn't understand. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. "You think I'm here to be your entertainment?" Her voice was calm but fierce, laced with a quiet rage. "You think I'm just some pawn to be butchered for your amusement?" She raised the pulse pistol again, pointing it toward the highest seats of the arena. The Z'Tar rulers, sitting in their opulent box, watched her with a mixture of confusion and growing anger. "You don't control me," she continued. "You don't own me. And if you think you can break me, I'll show you what happens when you push a Deathworlder to the edge." Another challenge appeared. This time, it wasn't a creature. It was a group of robotic soldiers, humanoid, armed with energy rifles. They stepped forward in perfect formation, their glowing red eyes locked onto her position. Elara knew they wouldn't hesitate to kill her. They were programmed to win, and they were efficient killers. But so was she. Elara sprinted forward, using the debris from the fallen beasts as cover. She moved fast, faster than they anticipated. The first robotic soldier raised its weapon, but she was already behind it, pulling the trigger of her pulse pistol. The energy blast hit the back of its head, short-circuiting its systems. It dropped without a sound. The remaining robots turned in unison, their weapons aimed squarely at her. She dove behind a large crate, using the terrain to her advantage. Her breath was shallow, but her mind was clear. "Not today," she whispered. She popped up from behind the crate, firing in rapid succession. One shot disabled a soldier's weapon, another took out its knee joint, sending it to the ground with a screech of metal. The final one charged, but Elara was faster, rolling underneath it and delivering a shot to its central processing unit. The robot dropped like a ragdoll. The arena was silent once again, the audience stunned into silence. In a matter of minutes she had killed 8. 8 in just 1 hour. And still, she wasn't done. The guards outside the arena, once eager to keep the fight going, were now hesitating. They had seen enough. By hour 2, they refused to enter. This girl, the Deathworlder, wasn't just a survivor. She was a force. And the Star were about to learn that humanity would not be broken so easily. To be continued. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Elara Quinn stood in the center of the arena, her body bruised, bloodied, and covered in dust. The heat of the arena, combined with the pressure of 1,000 eyes watching her every move, didn't faze her. She was used to worse. The screams of the alien spectators blended with the sound of her pulse ringing in her ears, each beat a reminder that she had to keep moving. She had to stay alive. "Round 2! The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "Kill or be killed. The Deathworlder's next challenge." The ground beneath her feet shifted as the gates opened. Elara's grip tightened around the pulse pistol, the weapon cold in her hand. Her mind raced with strategy, calculating the odds, the enemies, every advantage she had left. She knew how this worked. They were going to throw something bigger at her, something she hadn't seen yet. They always did. The Star, the alien species responsible for her captivity, had designed this arena for their sport of cruelty. They liked to watch humans suffer, fight, and die for their amusement. Elara wasn't here for their entertainment. She was here for something much bigger. Across from her, a large, mechanical figure emerged from the gates. It was a war droid, easily 8 feet tall, its metallic body gleaming under the harsh lights of the arena. The droid's movements were calculated, precise, its glowing red eyes scanning the space. Its weapon systems, integrated into its arms, hummed to life. It was built to kill. The crowd went wild. Elara didn't flinch. She had been in tougher fights. She had fought against beasts on Earth, on Deathworld, and survived. She had hunted creatures far stronger than this mechanical monster. But she knew it wouldn't be easy. The Star had designed it with her death in mind. Elara's eyes locked onto the droid. It started moving, a slow but deliberate pace toward her. She gripped the pistol, her knuckles white. She didn't wait for it to get any closer. She fired. A pulse shot out in a bright blue arc, hitting the droid square in its chest. The impact caused a burst of sparks and smoke, but the droid didn't falter. It only tilted its head slightly, assessing the damage before it raised one of its large, metal arms, aiming a blaster directly at her. Elara moved. She dove to the right, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser fire. The heat from the blast scorched the air, but Elara was already on the move. Rolling to her feet, she ducked behind a large chunk of debris from a previous battle. The droid's weapons fired again, the blast hitting the rubble she hid behind, sending fragments of rock and metal flying in all directions. She knew its weakness, every machine had one. Elara just had to get close enough to exploit it. The crowd screamed in excitement as the droid began its pursuit, its steps reverberating across the arena. It was fast, too fast. But Elara had speed on her side. She waited, taking a deep breath, letting the sound of the droid's footsteps fill her mind. It was close now. When it was within range, she sprinted out from behind the debris, catching the droid off guard. She rolled beneath its massive legs, narrowly dodging the swing of its arm, and came up behind it. With a quick flick of her wrist, she deployed a grenade, slamming it into the droid's exposed power core. The explosion sent the droid spinning, its metallic body crashing to the ground in a heap of sparks and twisted metal. The crowd was silent. For a moment, all Elara could hear was her own breath, shallow and ragged. She glanced over her shoulder, watching the twitching remains of the droid. The battle was far from over. The gates on the other side of the arena opened again, and this time, it wasn't a droid. It was something worse. A group of 5-star soldiers, armed and ready, marched onto the field. Their armor was sleek, metallic, their rifles raised. They were humanoid but powerful, built for combat. The star soldiers didn't hesitate. They opened fire immediately. Elara dove to the side, rolling into cover, her pulse pistol still gripped in her hands. Her mind raced, 5 of them. This wasn't a fair fight, but fairness had never been part of the equation in the arena. She had to think fast, had to outsmart them. The first shot hit the wall beside her, showering her in sparks. She fired back, hitting one soldier in the chest, but it didn't go down. They were stronger than she expected, their armor resistant to her shots. The star soldiers moved with military precision, flanking her position, forcing her into a corner. Elara gritted her teeth. There had to be a way out. She dove out of cover, rolling to the side and taking another shot, this one catching a soldier in the leg. It went down, but the others kept coming. The pressure was building, but Elara could feel it, the adrenaline coursing through her veins, her instincts kicking in. She needed to move. Fast. Elara sprinted to the far side of the arena, grabbing a discarded rifle along the way. She aimed it quickly, shooting at the remaining soldiers. The first 2 fell, but there was still one left, its weapon trained on her. She aimed for its head. Time slowed. She fired. The soldier dropped, its helmet disintegrating in a cloud of sparks. The arena fell into a stunned silence. Elara stood in the center, surrounded by the bodies of 8 dead enemies, her breath still heavy in her chest. The crowd was still. They didn't know how to react. Above her, the drones continued to circle, capturing every moment, every breath, every kill. They were waiting for the next spectacle. But there would be no more. Elara turned toward the gates, her eyes cold. She had sent a message. And she wasn't finished yet. The guards outside the arena looked at each other, hesitant now. The girl had killed 8. In an hour. A Deathworlder, they had called her. But they had no idea what they were truly dealing with. One thing was clear, no one would enter the arena again. The rules had changed. To be continued. The arena fell silent. Elara stood alone, her chest heaving with exhaustion. Blood dripped from her torn clothes, her face a canvas of dirt and sweat. She could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze, their eyes glued to her every move. She'd survived the impossible, 8 kills in 1 hour, but there was no time to savor the victory. The next wave was coming. Surprise! A familiar voice crackled in her ear. It was Soren, her contact in the control room. "We've got a change in the game. They've just upped the stakes." Elara clenched her jaw. "Tell me it's not another giant." "No. Worse," Soren replied, his voice tight. "They're bringing in their champion." Elara's eyes narrowed. The Stars champion. The one they never sent into the arena unless they were certain the fight would end in death. The Stars' greatest warrior, a beast of biological enhancement and brutal strength, trained to kill everything that moved. She had seen footage of him, tall, armored, a walking nightmare. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, cutting off her thoughts. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Deathworlder's reign of survival ends here. The Star Champion steps onto the field." The crowd erupted into cheers. The gates opposite Elara's position opened with a deafening roar, and through the haze of dust and smoke, a hulking figure emerged. He was everything Elara had expected, a living, breathing weapon. His body was massive, covered in dark, alien armor that glistened under the harsh arena lights. His helmet was smooth, featureless, save for the glowing red eyes that burned with an insatiable hunger for blood. His hands, if you could call them that, were monstrous, clawed, dripping with the promise of death. He stepped forward, a slow, calculated pace that sent a shiver down Elara's spine. The air seemed to thicken with every step he took. This was not just a fight, it was an execution, one that the Tsar believed was long overdue. But Elara wasn't going to die today. She wouldn't go down like a puppet in their twisted games. Not after everything she'd fought for. With a deep breath, Elara steadied herself. She couldn't match him in strength, not with the heavy armor he wore, or the weaponry built into his body. She had to outthink him. She had to use her speed, her instincts. "You're the Tsar's champion," Elara called out, her voice calm but laced with contempt. "That's what they call you, right? A walking nightmare?" The champion didn't respond. He just raised his arm, the massive blade attached to it glowing with a faint energy pulse. A warning. Elara took a step back, her pulse pistol raised, eyes scanning the battlefield. She had a limited window. She needed to close the distance and hit his weak spots, his joints, his exposed face. But he was already moving. With a roar, the champion lunged, closing the distance between them in a single bound. His blade swung through the air with terrifying speed. Elara dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the swing. The force of it sent a shockwave through the arena, the ground cracking beneath its impact. "Is that all you've got?" Elara taunted, rolling back onto her feet. She was already on the move again, trying to stay unpredictable, hoping the champion would underestimate her. Another strike came, and this time, Elara didn't dodge. She slid beneath the champion's sweeping attack, rolling forward, past his legs, and coming up on the other side. She fired her pulse pistol at his knee joints, the energy blast causing sparks to fly from his armor. He staggered, but only for a moment. Then, in a blur of motion, he whirled, his claws catching her shoulder as she tried to back away. Pain shot through her arm, but she gritted her teeth and fought against it, ignoring the burning sensation. "No," she muttered through clenched teeth. "Not today!" She aimed the pistol again, this time at his face. She had no choice but to go for the weak points. She fired. The shot hit, but the champion's helmet absorbed most of the blast. The damage was enough to make him pause, his head jerking back slightly as the energy disrupted the internal systems. Elara saw her chance. She charged, her movements fast, calculated. She was close now. But as she moved in, the champion swung his arm in a wide arc, sending her flying backward. Her body hit the ground hard, the air knocked out of her lungs. The pain was sharp, but it wasn't enough to stop her. She forced herself to her feet, her vision blurry. The crowd roared, but their voices were distant, muffled by the ringing in her ears. "You're strong," she gasped, her voice hoarse. "But I'm faster." She gritted her teeth and sprinted again. This time, she wasn't going for the easy shots. She knew she couldn't kill him with 1 or 2 hits. But she could slow him down. She could wear him out. Elara leaped to the side, avoiding another swing from the champion, and dove toward the debris on the far side of the arena. As she moved, she grabbed a jagged piece of metal, a broken piece of the arena's edge. She hurled it at the champion, not to hit him, but to distract him. The metal shard embedded itself in his shoulder armor, causing a brief malfunction in his systems. That was enough. In that split second, Elara lunged. She rolled behind him, dodging his strike, and stabbed the metal shard into the back of his armor, right where his spine would be. The force of the blow sent another burst of sparks from the champion's body, and he screamed, a guttural, mechanical roar that echoed through the arena. But Elara wasn't finished. She grabbed his head, her fingers finding the seam of his helmet. She ripped it off with a brutal twist, exposing the champion's face, no longer just a machine, but a mixture of synthetic flesh and alien biology. The face beneath the helmet was twisted, monstrous. But there was something else in his eyes. Fear. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The Star weren't invincible. They weren't gods. They were just another species, one she could fight. And she would. Elara raised her pulse pistol to his exposed throat. She could end it here, end the game, end their reign. The arena grew deathly silent, every alien eye focused on her. The champion gasped, his hand twitching toward his weapon, but it was too late. "I'm not your entertainment," Elara said, her voice a cold promise. The shot rang out, and the Star champion fell, the crowd finally going silent. Elara stood over him, her breath steady, her heart pounding in her chest. The price of defiance had been steep, but she had paid it willingly. The Star had underestimated humanity. And now, the galaxy would learn that they'd made the ultimate mistake. To be continued. The silence in the arena was deafening, even as the roar of the crowd swelled around her. Elara stood over the lifeless body of the Star champion, her pulse still racing, her breath coming in shallow, controlled gasps. The weight of the moment was starting to settle in. She had done it. She had killed the Star's greatest warrior in front of their entire empire. But there was no time to celebrate. The arena was still filled with Star soldiers, drones, and the alien spectators who had once thought her death was a certainty. She could see the anger building in their eyes now, the realization that their champion had fallen, and with him, their belief in the invincibility of the Star. "You've seen the truth now," Elara spoke aloud, her voice steady but cutting through the growing tension in the arena. Her words echoed through the speakers, addressing both her captors and the audience. "Humanity does not die easily. And we will not bow to you." Her words were met with a mix of disbelief and fury. But Elara didn't wait for their reaction. She had to act. As if on cue, the arena gates behind her creaked open. This time, there was no creature. No robot. This time, it was something else, a group of elite Star soldiers, heavily armored and carrying advanced energy weapons, marched onto the field. They were the elite guard, designed to ensure that no humans survived long enough to challenge the Star Empire's authority. Elara was already moving, taking quick, calculated steps toward the center of the arena. The soldiers spread out, flanking her from every side. Their rifles hummed to life, aiming directly at her. "You'll pay for that, human!" One of the Star soldiers hissed, his voice a distorted growl. He raised his weapon, preparing to fire. But Elara wasn't going down without one last fight. She dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast, and rolled behind a pillar of shattered stone. The moment she hit the ground, she was already firing, her pulse pistol discharging in rapid succession, the beams slicing through the air with deadly precision. One soldier fell to the ground, a shot to the chest. Another to the shoulder. Elara was relentless, her aim sharp, focused. The sound of the shots echoed in the arena, but she didn't care about the noise. She only cared about survival. Her mind was clear now. The fog of adrenaline had worn off, leaving only the raw instinct to survive. Every move she made was calculated. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for humanity's future. Another blast came her way, grazing her arm. The pain was sharp, but she ignored it. She had to stay focused. There was no room for error. The remaining soldiers closed in, moving with deadly intent. Elara's pulse pistol clicked empty, and she dropped it without hesitation, reaching for the combat knife strapped to her leg. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. As the soldiers closed in, she darted forward, using their own momentum against them. She ducked beneath one soldier's swing, slashing her knife across his exposed side. He crumpled instantly, his armor weak at the joints. Two more tried to surround her, but Elara was faster. She grabbed one by the wrist, twisting his arm behind his back, before delivering a brutal elbow to his helmet. His body dropped to the ground, unconscious, and she spun to face the remaining soldier. He was bigger than the others, his armor reinforced and glowing with energy. He didn't hesitate. He charged. Elara sidestepped, using his own speed against him. She drove her knife into the gap between his chest and arm, feeling the resistance of his armor before it gave way. His eyes widened in disbelief as he staggered back, blood oozing from the wound. He collapsed, and Elara yanked the knife free, her heart still pounding in her chest. The arena was silent again. The elite guard lay scattered around her, their bodies evidence of humanity's defiance. But there was no time to rest. There was more to come. The gates on the far side of the arena opened once again, and this time, Elara knew it wasn't another group of soldiers. It was the final wave. From the darkness of the entrance, a massive figure emerged, its hulking form casting a long shadow across the bloodied floor. It was a war machine, a towering humanoid robot, its armor sleek and imposing, the glowing red eyes burning through the smoke and dust. Elara didn't flinch. She had faced worse. She had faced them. The war machine lumbered toward her, its massive arms reaching for its energy cannon. The cannon hummed with power, charging up for the fatal shot. Elara wasted no time. She rushed toward it, weaving between the shattered pieces of the arena, using every piece of cover she could find. She couldn't take it head-on. She had to be smart. As the war machine aimed, Elara made her move. She dove, sliding beneath its giant legs, using the chaos of the fight to her advantage. In one smooth motion, she activated a hidden explosive charge she had snatched earlier from the arena debris. It was small, designed for close-range attacks, but it would be enough. The war machine didn't realize what happened until it was too late. The explosion rocked its body, sending sparks and fragments of its armor flying in every direction. It staggered, trying to maintain balance, but its power core had been damaged, and it was losing control. Elara seized the opportunity. She grabbed a plasma cutter from the ground and climbed up the machine's side, cutting into the joint where its arm met its body. She had moments before the machine would fully retaliate, and she used those precious seconds to strike. The cutting tool hissed as it sliced through the machine's armor, sparks flying in every direction. The war machine screamed, a mechanical, inhuman sound, as its systems began to fail. With a final, furious roar, it collapsed, its massive body crashing to the ground with a deafening thud. Elara stood atop it, breathing heavily, her body covered in sweat and blood. The crowd had fallen silent, unable to comprehend what had just happened. She had done the impossible. She had won. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the announcer's voice filled the arena, but this time, there was no triumph in it. Only grudging respect. Humanity's champion stands victorious. The Deathworlder survives. But at what cost? Elara didn't answer. She had already proven her point. She had shown them that humanity would not bend, that no matter the odds, Earth's warriors would fight until the last breath. The Star would learn that lesson the hard way. And Elara Quinn would be the one to make them remember. The end.